Okay.
Oh, yeah.
I already got that.
You already fired
Huh?
Change your house. 3 years. We'll do it. Yeah, I really, well, I'm not sure. So what I did is I hospital
Yeah, I contacted her.
I'll be in condition.
I think you should be, you should Why? All you gotta do is, don't let anybody talk to the jury, that's all you gotta do. Yeah, and stay away. And be able to hear. Yeah, be able to hear.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
If I have to stay away.
Especially in a civil trial, that would be so dry. Yeah.
Very true.
Sure.
It's fun to watch some of those.
Oh, yeah. Does it work? Yeah. Yeah, no stop blinking one way.
Anytime Steve Willet's involved, it's a long show. It is, it's.
Okay, it's 8 o'clock, we'll call the meeting for the CJCC committee to order. Let's all rise for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. If I could, everybody's had a chance to read the minutes. Did I get a motion on approving the minutes from last meeting?
I wanna just point out one correction, cause, I don't see that Jessica's here from Radiant Services, but the minutes say that Jessica was gonna come back and talk about the contract, but, the contract, I'm writing the contract with court counsel, so she won't, I don't know if she's going to appear by Zoom, or was she gonna come?
She said she's coming in.
She is, okay, so, not here yet, but just so there isn't anybody asking for questions, she's not drafting the contract, we are.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second. A motion and a second, any more questions? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Okay, we have Kendra and Stephanie here from, Embrace, gonna update us on the VOCA and Embrace services.
Yes, so I'm Kendra Krillin and I'm the Sexual Violence Program Coordinator here at Embrace in Rusk County.
I'm Stephanie Burning, the Domestic Violence Program Coordinator here in Rusk County.
We have a ton of information for you today, we have 2 pages. So, if you haven't heard, there's been serious cuts to the Federal Victims of Crime Act, which is VOCA. It's gutted funding for domestic and sexual violence programs across the country. So VOCA funds many of the federal grants domestic and sexual violence programs like Embrace depend on. The cuts are significant enough that some of our neighboring sister agencies will be forced to shut down entirely. For Embrace, it means we're losing about 1/3 of our annual operating budget at minimum. So pretty big loss that we're gonna be experiencing here with the VOCA cuts. Just wanna address too, some people, you may be thinking like, why the heck did we just purchase Wells Fargo then? So that's another thing we wanted to mention. We did receive a grant from the Pablo Foundation. It was kind of like stars all aligned kind of situation where we had this grant for capital improvements to our Rusk office. We ended up getting a quote to see what it would be like to update our current building, and it was outrageously expensive. The grant couldn't cover it. So we asked the Pablo Foundation if we could purchase, a second building, and they said yes, we could use the funds for that. And then thankfully Wells Fargo reduced the cost, so we had enough money to make that purchase. So we're super, super thankful to Wells Fargo and the Pablo Foundation, because it wouldn't have been possible without them to be able to purchase that. So unfortunately, due to those VOCA cuts that we're talking about, our services are gonna have to be restructured to weather the funding changes. So we wanted to give an update to you all on what to expect when referring survivors to Embrace.
So some of those changes, we have different office hours now. So our office hours are 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And then Fridays 8 to 1:30. And the way we're doing this is we have a partnership with Gold Cross, so we still have 24/7 on-call advocates available. So after office hours, it'll transfer over to Gold Cross. And then if it is an emergency, they would transfer to our on-call. And our harm reduction is still happening.
Yeah, before we just had services offered 24/7, and now it's just like, hey, try to come in during business hours. But if someone needs that immediate response, they can still call. Gold Cross will get them to an on-call system. So if someone needs a SANE exam in the middle of the night, or someone's coming in to report to law enforcement, we can still send out an advocate to meet with them. Another big thing with this is the Safe Exchange program requires a 24/7 on-site advocate to be able to operate. So because we're losing funds for 24/7 on-site staff, we are forced to dissolve the Safe Exchange program. So the official end date of that program was January 30th of this year. We did notify all the participating families to give them time to make other arrangements, since there are no other exchange programs in the area. In addition, we did offer appointments with each participant to discuss safety planning alternatives to the program. Although the formal Safe Exchange program has ended, Embrace is still here. We are providing safety planning services to families. So if you are working with someone who is doing those custody exchanges and they want to talk with me or Seth and safety plan, we're happy to do that. Like I said, we did it with our participating families. And honestly, it wasn't a lot of participating families. I think we had, 8 or 9, usually 10 families at the most, that were operating in that family. And a lot of times it wasn't parents, it wasn't even high risk situations. It was just simply parents that couldn't get along for custody exchanges, so.
Right, so a little bit about the county billing and funding. We do want to reassure everyone that services to youth are still being provided by Embrace. Safe Exchange was a tiny portion of the youth services we provide. We are still meeting individually with kiddos, providing support to families, and are present in the schools for support groups and on-site counseling hours. We are still available, so please continue referring families and kids our way. Embrace currently receives $12,000 a year from the county. $8,000 is used to support direct advocacy services to Rusk County kids in shelter stays. We bill for those services hourly and nightly if shelter is provided to a family with children from Rusk. $4,000 is a flat rate that we use to cover prevention education services. We typically need the full $8,000 allotted to direct advocacy services in the first 6 months of the year. Regardless of the change, we know we will quickly spend the money out in 2024 with all of the youth services we are providing in our community.
Yeah, we know this is a lot of changes, so thank you for letting us, come in and share today. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We're happy to talk through kind of the changes with Embrace due to the VOCA cuts. We did bring our 2022 annual report, so we'll pass that out to you just so everyone can see kind of all of the other services that we are providing. So we'll pass those out.
What do you see in 2025, for example? Are there gonna be additional cuts, or are there gonna be additional funding sources?
I think that these cuts are gonna be experienced over the next couple of years, from my understanding. I don't have those numbers right in front of me. I just know, like I said, that the cuts is gonna be 1/3 of our budget, for 2024 and 2025. I'm not sure about 2026. There is legislative bills that they're working on to get more funding back. However, nothing is a guarantee, as everything is being battled for right now. So, this is the reality, unfortunately, of a nonprofit organization. There's ebbs and flows, and so yeah, we're really hopeful that there will be more funding available in the future, but currently right now we have to operate with this 1/3 budget cut.
a question about restraining orders
Yes.
and the clerk reports.
Yeah.
So I get many people that come to the window,
Yeah.
and we always used to send them to Grace's house. Are you
Yes.
guys still doing that?
Yeah, absolutely, so,
But they kinda come back that they don't always get assistance, so I didn't know if that was true.
yeah, so we, are meeting with anyone who is high risk of violence, so if someone comes in, so typically intimate partner violence, however, if it's other domestic violence, you know, someone in the home, like, we're doing those restraining orders with them. Now, if it's a neighbor dispute, you know, that's something we're not gonna assist with, so typically at that point, we'd give them the restraining order packet. We have a fact sheet too that we pass out that kinda just talks about the process, but yeah, we're still meeting with people, I was actually just in court last week for one, so,
Okay,
yeah.
So I could keep sending you.
Absolutely,
Oh,
yeah.
Definitely, I do it.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, yeah, if there's violence involved, we definitely wanna connect with folks and be able to say something with them.
Okay, great.
So it just seems like, I mean, I'll be straightforward because I always am, but the restraining order quality that we're getting lately is what we kind of noticed.
Okay.
So, and they're probably ones now that you've explained it, that you're not assisting with.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of a fright for us to question that. Do you know how many that you assisted with? I don't wanna put you on the spot, so I know if you don't have the
Yeah.
numbers, but if you could let us know, that would be good.
Yeah, are you, well, cause we could go through our system and run, cause we do, we keep track of everything we provide, so we can run numbers. Yeah, but I have no idea off the top of my head.
Yeah,
I
No,
say,
I wouldn't think that you would, and it wasn't really fair of me to just.
no,
ask
that's
that,
okay,
but-
and that.
So, and I just wanna bring up, because now I have received questioning from Embrace recently that there was a community partner of Embrace who was under the impression that restraining orders were not being handled in Rusk County. And, I was shocked to hear that, very shocked, because then we went back and pulled numbers, and what was it, out of 66 restraining orders since August 1st of 22nd, when I took the bench, only 3 of them had been sent to other judges for conflict or substitution. Now we're much over 70, I'm sure, but, and still just that, which is less than 0.5%. So I don't know where that came from, but
Yeah.
it is not accurate information.
Yeah,
because they
and
are
We
all
knew that
being
really
handled
because, I mean, we're doing the restraining orders with people, so we know they're being done.
Yeah.
We just wanted to clarify for that.
here.
Yeah, yeah, we were shocked too when we heard that, we're like, no, cause we're still, you know,
Yeah,
filling them out with
definitely doing
people,
that.
like, we're, no, there's still court hearings, so. Yeah, no, we, once we heard that, we, you know, verified with that person of like, nope, we checked in, like, restraining orders are still happening, so.
And I
Yeah.
very much appreciate that you came right to me with that, so that that
Absolutely.
misconception,
Right.
you know, could be, you know, verified, that it's just not true. The other thing I wanted to bring up, is there any way to salvage this safe exchange? I mean, I thought the numbers were like 13 families, sounds low, but in the scheme of things, I see those particular families coming through the court system. This safe exchange program is huge in prevention. They are people who should not be anywhere near each other. What it does to the children, all of it. So it's been very valuable, and I'm very grateful that Embrace was doing that. It was great, and I get it, that it's funding, but, I mean, I'm sure, knowing the orders that are out there, the exchanges are like at 6 PM on Friday, 7 PM on Friday. If the program were still there, but it had to be within your hours, is it an option? Is there any way to save this?
I mean, we talked about, you know, that, because like I said, the issue we're running into is we can't operate the program because we needed that 24/7 staff outside of those hours. And I mean, to have 24/7 staff is outrageously expensive. I mean, it's $300,000, I mean, and like I said, when we're experiencing 1/3 of our budget, that's why I was like, we can't simply do this. The problem is we do it during just our business hours, then that kind of swamps me and Steph from being able to do all of the other things that we provide in the community. So that was something we had to weigh of like, do we keep this program or do we do these other things? And I mean, we simply just don't have the money to do it all. And so that's why we had to kind of make decisions from there. I mean,
I'm gonna jump on with that. I
Yeah.
think it's a program that really needs to continue to happen.
Yeah.
And so I think maybe we need to try and figure out how we can make this happen.
Yeah.
Because, as soon as, I did not know that until you said that today, and that was my first thought, well, why does it have to be 24/7? Can't it be, but you got reasons, I get it, but I agree, we need to figure out a way to make that still happen, because keeps these kids safe, and they don't have to deal with a lot of the mom and dad argument that goes on.
Yeah.
I'll
Yeah, that's-
chime in here with that.
Yeah, the other thing we found out too is just like with work and school schedules, so some families will just exchange at school, like say mom drops off in the morning and then other parent picks up after school, so that works well because they don't have to see each other. But I mean, some families can't exchange at 3 or 4 before we close because they work till 5 or 6. So that's another barrier, you know, with the office hours, especially because it's not someone coming in for a one-time appointment, it's them, you know, consistently exchanging throughout the week, so they would have to change their work schedule probably at that point.
Yeah, I know it's not, I mean, I just think maybe, and maybe just sitting down with Katie and you guys to
Yeah.
see, you know, if we could get volunteers, you know, the place, so right now, people are kinda just unilaterally saying, okay, we're gonna exchange at the police station. Well, they can't come in and exchange, and we don't want that here either. So, you know, there's a camera, yeah, and the police department's here, but that doesn't mean that there's always officers here that
Yeah.
are doing their work too. Then I get things like, okay, how about McDonald's, one park on one side, the other park on the other, and we'll send the kid through McDonald's. Well, not all kids are old enough to walk down this, and so, yeah, and the timeline for this cutting down, I mean, I'll tell you, I just had a hearing yesterday just for people who needed to figure out what to do with the exchange. So here we are, you know, almost to March, and you guys stopped in January. And so thankfully nothing happened, because these were parents that I'm surprised, that they haven't been arrested, by doing that, but, so, yeah, it's a struggle, and, you know, I don't know if the answer is volunteers or.
Just, Sheriff, we got, later on our agenda, we've got, we're talking about work groups instead of standing committees. It sounds to me like this is something that would just be ideal to assign a work group to research and see if we can come up with funding or a different plan.
That's what I was thinking.
We're having, Embrace's board meeting is later this morning, and, we'll be, discussing. I had a chat with, Katie yesterday about it, and we'll be talking about that later. And I'm sure that we can at least work out an arrangement where our facility could be utilized. And I've got a couple of other, possibilities to look into. I can't talk to about them now, but we can certainly, be proactive in trying to figure out a way to, so. Does everybody know what where the VOCA money comes from, and why there isn't any?
Probably not everybody else.
Yeah. Most of the VOCA funds were, came from fines, that the federal government, imposed on certain kinds of, mostly white collar crime. And then it was designated by Congress to be used for these programs, and, during the previous administration, there was not very much of that kind of crime being prosecuted, so they didn't, or they weren't levying any big fines, so that the fund got depleted. There is a bill in the Wisconsin legislature to, use Wisconsin general purpose, revenues, but I don't think that's gonna pass. And I know the feds have Congress has tried to do something to put GP funds in too, and that didn't work. So it'll take a while for that fund to be built up, so maybe in the future, VOCA will come back stronger, but right now it's broke.
The depletion was about 70%, that it depleted of the funds.
Yeah.
No easing into that for you.
No.
What are you gonna do with the shelter?
With the Wells Fargo purchase?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's gonna be a long time before we're actually, you know, the Wells Fargo building, it needs some repairs and, you know, for us to get set up in there, but ideally down the road, the Wells Fargo building would be our office spaces. And then the shelter, we try to turn it into, like apartments, like transitional living apartments, because we've been working with a lot of survivors in housing, so.
Thank you.
So yeah, it'll be a couple years, but fingers crossed, yeah, we're excited for it.
Thank you for that explanation, that helps a lot.
Absolutely.
I'm gonna touch quickly on the VOCA that affects us here. Nancy is our crime victim witness, and her position is all VOCA funded. And she she's lost 1/3 of that also, so that's gonna affect the court system and that, so it's a huge loss. She's gonna, with the loss, she's gonna come up about $7,200 short this year on her, just on her salary, so we're gonna figure that out. So, any other questions for, Kendra and Stephanie? If not, thank you very much for coming in, we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Jessica, I guess you're here if somebody has more questions for you about your program or whatever. So, she's here if you guys got questions, so. If not, it's on here about the contract, but Annette said that contract is being written by the county or by Annette or whoever.
I don't know if you saw the minutes, so,
I haven't yet, no.
okay, so then I didn't know if it would confuse you because it made it sound like we were gonna come in with a contract. But
No.
I explained, I clarified that that I'm working with the court counsel on the contract, not you, so
Yes.
I won't put that on you. But you didn't know anyway.
I do write a lot of contracting, but it's nice to not have to always be doing that. So if anybody had any questions or concerns or, wanted more clarification on anything we spoke about last time I came in, I thought I'd just leave it open floor, and see what everybody thought.
Can we ask, what you're shooting for in this contract? We kinda covered a lot of ground, I think, last time about options, lots of different things. So I'm just wondering, where's the focus gonna be, and how much time, that kind of stuff. Can you talk to any of that?
Yeah, so the plan is for the groups, and then, as Jessica explained the last time, they would have somebody doing, the NA groups, so that they're up to fidelity, but that's not part of the contract. We just haven't narrowed down yet under the grant budget, how many groups per week. We had been doing 3, but, in all honesty, we're doing individualized treatment plans now, so they are a lot of time doing weekly mental health and weekly AODA separate, which is different than before. They would have 1 before, so, 2 to 3 groups a week to start off with is what we're looking at. And then that's what Jessica handed out the last time, was what those groups would entail. I looked at it, her outline really follows closely the Real Living, I think it's called Real Living from Hazelden.
I didn't look any further into it, but I'm not
It
surprised.
does though,
Yeah.
I mean, I know that you wrote that without
I
knowing
didn't
what that
look.
program is, so, I mean, I like it because we did purchase that curriculum and it follows that very closely, which is a hugely popular and successful program, so.
Yes, Hazelden has great successful programs. We do a lot of their training, so it's not surprising that we would follow the same kind of thinking. So we do work very closely with any kind of training programs they have.
Now, Judge or Jessica, whoever can answer this, obviously right now, our treatment, or our recovery court doesn't have a lot of participants. How are we gonna handle that, and then as we get more, how are we gonna integrate those in?
Well, the program is designed to be cyclical, so you could jump in really at any point and gain skills. The idea is that as participants do a 6-week program and then they run the second 6-week program, they're almost kind of increasing their level of proficiency with the skills and the abilities. So it's not something that would necessarily have to start from day 1 and then work through. You could jump in midstream and complete the program through the second round of 6-week courses, if that makes sense. So it is fluid enough that participants can join in at any point and they won't miss any baseline. There would probably be some minor integration, like talking through with a new participant how to start their journaling or something to that effect, but for the most part, it would be a 10-minute conversation to catch somebody up to what they need to do to pick up in the middle.
Kind of hard to have a group with 1 participant, but, you know, Rich, that, we have another applicant, we have plenty of cases in Rusk County that meet the criteria for our drug court. And we have a serious drug problem here, so getting people into the program who meet the qualifications and the requirements is not going to be a problem. The problem has been that we don't have a coordinator. And so, Rich and Drew are seeking permission for an interim coordinator with personnel. If they approve that, then we're already in that position, and then we have people back at the table as soon as we have coordinators, so. Letters have gone out to, attorneys, I believe, right? Who are handling cases that, qualify for the treatment court. So public awareness, efforts have been started. I don't know, what else, you guys?
And just, as an update, cause I just, had the MRT monthly fidelity call, yesterday, day before yesterday, actually. And, we're not the only ones, I mean, there was like 50 people on this fidelity call. There are several groups that are exceedingly small, from 1 to 2 people, and the, consensus, on, the, MRT call was, it's not ideal, we like to have 5, but you do the best with what you can.
Any other questions for Jessica?
Are you getting any referrals other than through, I think you said you notified the attorneys? Is that available, but how about other sources, such as law enforcement, such as district attorney's office?
Well, we don't have a district attorney, you know, we have a special prosecutor right now who's barely keeping his head above water because he's part-time and, really talks that he's gonna be here for weeks, not months. We never did get them from law enforcement, that was always done just through the DA's office. So we haven't because of the transition, but, I believe we will now.
I think that a strategy where you're looking at multiple referral sources is essential. It also gives you buy-in from more than one group.
Right, and we have heard from probation that, you know, once we have a coordinator, they, ATR, alternatives to revocation, sometimes we've been only alternatives to revocation in our treatment court. And, they are more than willing to send people to us once we have a coordinator.
When is that meeting coming up to see if we can approve, an interim?
Personnel, when is that,
Personnel is-
first week of the month?
The 7th.
7, okay.
But it's gonna be on the agenda, right, Ashley? As far as you know.
Is that the last stop in the decision-making process? Or
Right.
does it have to go beyond that?
No, if
We
it's,
could probably find 3 or 4 more committees.
I don't think they need help doing
We're-
that.
We're not talking about the jail or the tower now.
Okay,
I think that should be it though, right? Right, we don't have to,
for a strictly interim
for an
LCD.
interim, yeah, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
okay, thank you, Jessica. Discussion, motion on changing from standing committees to work groups. We kinda talked a little bit, I don't know if we talked at the meeting, but Rich and I and Drew kinda talked about this, we have all these subcommittees, and we have people on these committees, and every month we come in and say, well, we need an update. We don't have nothing, we didn't need. So, we kinda feel that there's no need to have all these committees. We think that, we should just, if there's some information we want, we assign a group of people to do that from the CJCC committee, and they get that information and bring it back. We don't have to have all these committees that are supposed to meet that don't meet. What do
The
you?
national standards, recommends having work groups rather than standing committees also. But
I guess what's your guys' input on this?
Whatever works, that's what I'm in favor of. You know, if we, like, for example, this, OCA issue with, Safe exchange.
Yeah.
You know, if it's volunteers and those people are identified, if we need more of
guess along that line, I would like to make a motion that we assign a work group to research the safe exchange and see what alternatives are there.
Okay, we have a motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to put together a work group for the safe exchange. Any other questions on it? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So that leaves me to, who wants to volunteer to be on that committee? Hey, Rich? Judge?
Chief, I think that'd be good for you. Put you on the spot, man.
Well, unfortunately, you know, like, they're gonna get, for the lack of better words, the safe exchange is gonna get dumped on my department, and it already has. Somebody, you know, we had a family come in, I don't mean dumped, but, we had a family come in a couple weeks ago that said they were told that the police department had to handle it. I don't know if that's true or not. We're gonna be down 3 officers this summer. I'm not gonna have staff to have somebody here at 6 PM on Friday night, every Friday night. So, yeah, I guess I would probably be one that should be on the committee, but it's kinda contingent on, Mr. Willingham, you talked about the board meeting today, and there's gonna be some discussion on safe exchange, or no?
Yes, I will make sure that we do.
Yeah. And I guess it depends on what comes out of that, could change how we operate too. I mean, perfect world, it would continue on, but I know that's not, probably not a possibility, so I think it's up to the courts. We gotta figure out, you know, what we're gonna do as well. So, you know, I was just, my belief is, I was hoping the judge wasn't, I kinda wish she would've.
She has coordinated.
Yeah, no problem. You know, I just hope that she doesn't wanna rely on our department to say, okay, now you're gonna do it at the police department every Friday or Thursday, Saturday, at a certain time.
I think everybody agrees that that's a bad idea.
Yeah, I think public places might even be a better option, but.
Which was
For
something.
some families, it's not, I get that
Yeah,
too.
we did talk with all the participating families about like options of where they could. And so we did, you know, McDonald's was one, Quick Trip was one, but also some people, like, they just come to Ladysmith because that's where we were housed. We talked about, what about if you live in Shelter, what about if you live in Glen Flora? Like, we're having those
Yeah.
conversations, we're not
Yeah.
trying to dump it on you in any way, but yeah, it's tough, it
Yeah.
sucks. If we had money, we'd still have
Yeah.
a program.
Well, could we ask one of you ladies to be part of the work group?
I was just gonna say, put someone down, a representative from Embrace, can you just, it would be me, or if I'm not available, staff can step in too, so. Because, yeah, I mean, we've been doing this program for several years, I mean, we have the
I'd
historical
be glad
context.
to attend those meetings.
You're on too, Dave?
And Jeff, if it's not a conflict for somebody coming forward, I can do it too.
Okay,
Just can I ask
you volunteer?
Who? No, just out of curiosity, is there any charge to those parents who are involved in this? That may be something you wanna consider, some buy-in. We did it through a private company, that used volunteers, and they did have staffing that was flexible because of their volunteers. But we required a modest payment by each of the parents, not just one,
Yeah.
but modest, I think we charged $20, something like that, but,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, they're the ones getting the service, and if it has value, I think that gives them a little bit more buy-in.
Yeah.
Plus, one of the things we found was, when we required them to contribute financially, sometimes the need for that exchange went away. Because they went, we ain't paying for this, we'll figure this out
Yeah.
in a safe way. So, just something to throw into your mix, cause people were willing to do it, if they really felt they needed that service,
Yeah.
they're willing to do that.
And that's something I think it gets tricky with our current grant funding. I think some of our grants say like we can't charge for services because all of our services are free and confidential for survivors. So I mean, that's something that, I mean, we'd have to bring to management and see if they could look into more. But yeah, I think it's hard to charge when you've got specific grants saying you
But
can't.
that's why we went to an outside organization. and
Correct.
They charged.
Correct.
You didn't charge.
Yeah, so if it's something we can't do, maybe there's someone else in the community that can provide that service and charge for it.
Just a thought.
Okay, I got Rich, Judge Stewart, Chief Julian, Kendra, you know.
Perfect.
And Dave and Lori on that committee. I'd like you guys to, see what you come up with and report back to us in March. Leave it up to you guys to meet whenever you can meet. Any other questions, comments on the work groups? Anything else, you want information on right now this month? If not, discuss and motion setting a program review meeting to replace one CJCC meeting a quarter. Comments, concerns on that? I'm not quite sure on that one, Drew, what the plan is on that.
So that's part of the bylaws, that we accepted last week, or last month. And there is the program review. And it periodically reviews and updates procedural guidelines for treatment courts operations, including but not limited to treatment court policies, budgets, and forms. And we had it on last month's meeting, but we didn't get time to go over it.
Yeah.
So I think it was just we could either do it quarterly, we could do it semi-annually, annually, but we need to have some sort of program review meeting where we go through and we go, make sure everything's aligned and, that we're doing everything correctly.
So we're looking to replace one of the quarterly meetings with that review.
Yeah, it was brought up as to put in a quarterly meeting. Again, it could be quarterly, semi-annually, annually, but just to have something set in stone so we actually do these meetings, and it would be every team member of the CJCC would have a vote power in that as well.
I think maybe a quarterly might be too frequent.
No, but I think I would respectfully disagree, at least initially, and that is I think to put this thing back together, because that's what we're talking about here, evaluating that program and monitoring that program with a broader group, I think is absolutely essential. And so, when I first started one, we did it monthly. Now they're up to annually, but it's been going now for 15 plus years, probably closer to 20. And now it's just annually that committee meets and evaluates. But initially we started off at a month, and we went to quarterly, then we went to 6 months, depending upon what that need was. But our program was thriving and made a lot of changes and stuff over time. So I think I would like to see it be at least quarterly and substitute itself for one of these meetings, CJCC meeting, because I really think it's a problem. If you don't have a treatment court, what do you have right now? As a CJCC meeting, that's pretty much it. And maybe truancy court, which is also a treatment court. But I just think that's really important.
Changing from standing committees to work groups, certainly has some merit to the concept. But the problem with the standing committees was that people volunteered to be on the committee, but nobody volunteered to have a committee meeting. And so, month after month, nobody was reporting because they weren't meeting. So if you have a work group and you're not meeting, it doesn't make any difference whether you have a work group or a standing group. So I'm gonna volunteer Lori to be the one to contact everybody on the new work group and try to set up the meeting so that we'll actually get something done. But anyway, I think, that's the same thing with the program evaluation committee. We had one, but for whatever reason, they never chose to meet. gonna do it. This may be one way to get that piece done, by substituting for.
I think when there is a work group, I'm gonna talk about the chair here. But to designate someone in that group to coordinate that meeting, in other words, sort of the chair of that group, I think is essential, otherwise, who does it?
Well, it sounded like Lori volunteered to me.
Yes, she did.
Thank you, Lori.
Thank you.
You know, I've been in those voluntold situations before.
Yeah. So, I guess what I'm understanding is we want to replace one of our monthly meetings quarterly for this review. Are we, and I've been on here a while, but we used to have our monthly meetings, and then we had, it was drug court quarterly meetings, so, and that was kind of the review thing, right? Is that correct? Is that kind of what that was, we reviewed the drug court in that quarterly meetings?
Yeah, I never was
Yeah.
part of those, but I think.
So, you wanna have the review quarterly at a different meeting? Or do you wanna just have it replace one of our monthly ones? Matters not to me. Just adds more meetings to everybody's schedule.
I think just replace one of the monthly ones.
Yeah, I see some head nods.
The focus obviously will be on recovery court, but the other programs and probably be an appropriate place for the work groups to finalize some kind of report
Get
also.
started, do you think an hour meeting will be sufficient?
I think it'd be adequate, yeah. You know, that's the kind of thing like the recovery court should come prepared, with where we're at and the progress and that type of thing. I emphasize we should, you know, so. And if Drew gets appointed as the interim coordinator, guess whose responsibility that'll be?
Well, certainly we can move at a faster pace than the county does.
Without a doubt.
Committees.
You know, I kinda laughed when the judge said that the prosecutor was only gonna do it for a few weeks, and I kinda chuckled because I heard that last April about filling in as the drug court coordinator also.
That's what they usually tell volunteers.
Right.
Okay, so we'll replace one monthly meeting with one quarterly meeting, and what month do you wanna start that?
I think, Sheriff, that, because of the, Wisconsin Association Treatment Court is going to be over the April CJCC, I think we may wanna start that for the May meeting for the first time. So we'll miss the first quarter of this year, but if we have that after the, treatment court professional convention, we'll probably have additional information and additional plans going forward.
Okay.
I agree, May is when you start initiating your budget process for the following year, and that kinda gets you in sync with the county and audit budgets and so on in May, and then over the summer, and then finalizing that in the fall and stuff, it should keep it in sync with that. I do wanna raise one other issue though. I would ask that the executive committee, take a look at this modification in our bylaws so that they accurately reflect what we just did today in moving to the work groups. And some language related to that, because again, these are our rules and, they need to be accurate and up to date. So I'd like to see the executive committee bring that back to us and say, okay, you want work groups, here's what it's gonna look like in terms of our bylaws.
Okay. Do we need a motion on, moving this meeting, or? we need to do that?
I'll move that we move it to the 23rd of May. The program review committee, or
Second.
a second, any other questions, comments? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Jail tower update, Ashley, George, when you do wanna?
Oh, okay, so, we put out an RFP for, tower upgrades. We're looking at moving towards simulcast to improve officer communication, and then hoping to get some quotes on what it would take to put a southwest tower up, to help with coverage issues. Those proposals are due back mid-March, mid to end of March. We'll go through them and then make a recommendation to the board. Initially, it was looking like we would do this in 2 phases, each phase about $2.5 million. So overall, we're thinking this will be about a $5 to $6 million project for the towers. And then for the jail, the ad hoc committee has selected the block south here of Minor Ave, where the gateway, building is. That still needs to go through the full board, so we'll be having a pretty lengthy presentation on Tuesday at the board meeting to talk about that and to talk about, a letter that will be sent to the taxpayers and public meetings that are tentatively scheduled for the 3rd, 4th, and 5th, Weyerhaeuser, Hawkins, and, out at Jump River.
And then the website.
Yes, and a website, so the letter will drive people to the website talks about, what the problems are that we're facing now, infractions from DOC, the proposed solution, the tax impact, a frequently asked questions section, and then the public will also have access to like a, comment or questions submittal portal as well, and those questions will come to us internally and the folks at Samuel's Adventure, so.
For those, we're talking kinda ambiguous, cause it's our project, and we talk about that. Sheriff, would you share some of the concerns that you brought to our attention the other day about why we need the tower project and what the communication issues are?
Okay, well, probably, the 2 big issues we have is, one, in the southwest, part of the county, we have no service, radio service whatsoever in certain spots. Our guys cannot even get out on their mobile radios and talk to dispatch. Very concerning. If you're somewhere and you got an issue and you can't get out, nobody knows you need help. And second is because, we're just using a repeater off each tower, the towers don't talk to themselves, the tower talks to dispatch. So, George is over on the western half of the county, I'm over on the eastern half of the county, and he's got something going on. I don't hear it from George, it would have to be relayed through dispatch. So, there's no way to communicate one side of the county to the other because of that. With simulcast, all the towers talk at the same time, so anything that is put out on a tower goes out to every tower. So, everybody, everywhere will hear everything that's sent out. So, them are our 2 biggest concerns.
Most of you know that my background is in law enforcement, and I worked a lot of years, and when the sheriff brought that to my attention, it just scares the heck out of me, because not only does it put the officers at risk out there and not being able to communicate, and the one thing that breaks down in any tactical situation is communications anyway. But to not have that car to car or officer to officer communication puts everybody at risk, and even us as citizens, if we happen to be down there and need help and that officer can't call for medical help or anything else, that's a big risk. So, yeah, it's a big expensive project, but I think, as a citizen of Rusk County, I think that's a project that definitely needs to move forward with all possible speed. And I didn't even realize that the sheriff's department suffered that type of communication loss, so that's really critical.
So is the plan, just so I'm clear here, is to put up a new tower that's gonna handle all this?
No.
Okay.
What happens is each tower that we have now
Okay,
will be either with the microwave dish or fiber optics, that they're still working that out. And, so we don't have to build towers unless the test shows that the tower can't support the dish that's being put up there. They all have to be tested for weight and wind and snow and ice and all that. So there's two ways to go about doing it, either the microwave dish or the fiber, and correct me if I'm wrong, George,
No, you're.
this is
right.
like computers, it's over my, you know. But, that way, that cuts the expense down quite a bit, because the tower, $1 million probably, if we have to build a tower. Right now, we are on towers, and we pay rental for, very reasonable rental, compared to what a lot of places pay. But each tower will get that, and then each tower will talk to itself, there'll be no need, we believe no need to, put up new towers, cause, east is a new tower, and south, we're on a brand new tower down there. We're on the old fire tower on Norwegian Hill, which is the highest point, and in the southwest, there's a brand new tower that went up at 40 in Chippewa Ave. That's a brand new tower, and we're trying to get on there for that southwest one. So hopefully the weight restriction isn't an issue, but we'll find out.
Sheriff, or actually, George, what can this group do to help move that along? Anything at all, or?
Well, right now, we're just waiting on the RFPs to come back and the pricing and go from there. I mean, it certainly doesn't hurt for us to go to finance or the county board and back the program. That's certainly, you can always come and speak in the public speaking and give your opinion on it. You can certainly do that.
But I think this body should respond as a body as well, and not just individual comments. If we're on the road, hopefully, somebody in this room has some influence, being part of this group, but I really encourage the CJCC to take an active role. If we have the information and we think that it's necessary, then we can do some things as a body here, hopefully, that the county will respond to.
And that's kind of what we're here for, I think.
I understand that, but again, a lot of these things that we've talked about over the last 10 years I've been here, seem to kind of fizzle out. So I don't wanna see that as happen. I wanna see this as a recognized body that when we say something, it carries some weight with the county board. As opposed to an individual me going in as a department head or a program or whatever. And that it's supported by all.
Okay.
What are you suggesting, Judge? Should we draft a letter or something of that nature?
Well,
So how about a motion from the body to, support the need and urge the county to move forward at, all possible, which is pretty slow for a county, but, it's less than 55. But I would make that.
Okay, we have a motion from Dave,
I'll second the motion.
second from Craig. Any other questions, comments? We wanna make that motion, do we wanna follow with the letter?
Sure.
Okay,
And the letter's addressed to
to the county.
county board. Cause right now you're supplementing, but you can't get off the mobiles, you're doing with cell phones, right?
Well, and that's not,
That doesn't work
That's
over
not
there.
good
I mean,
either, yeah.
Verizon is very poor right in the village of Bruce. I mean, so they're not as reliable as people think they are.
And just as,
And even in the courthouse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
just as we can't get service as citizens, you're not getting it on your cell phone either.
So we have a motion and a second, and the motion is to, support updating the tower, followed with a letter to the county board. Any other questions, comments?
Would you want all the members of this group to sign that letter then also, right? Cause.
Well, I think that Drew can draft a letter and share it with the chair, and then, if that reflects what you think the body, then just say you're speaking on behalf of the committee, or the CJCC, which on, what day is today?
Second.
February the 22nd, pass a motion to that effect.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Next meeting, March 28th, 8 o'clock working for everybody, that, it's a one-time shot, but anybody got an extra half hour sleep? Okay, motion to adjourn,
Also move.
we are adjourned.
As